Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us and welcome to the Clinic Talk Show. Today, I have an awesome guest, Aaron LeBauer. He's a physical therapist out in Greensboro, in North Carolina. Aaron, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Steve. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to have you on. So it sounds like you have multiple things going on. So you're a business owner, you have a therapy practice, you're also a business coach. Is that right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've been doing both for quite a while now.
Awesome, awesome. And you actually have you're an author and you have your own podcast.
That's right.
So that's excellent. So we'll get into that a little bit later. So I just want you to introduce yourself for everyone. Let us know kind of your background. We know you're a physical therapist. How did you come about to be in the entrepreneurial space?
Yeah, well, let's see, I never had a real job. I mean, I did, but I never like one after college that you can interview for. I never got a real job. And I worked at like bike shops and restaurants and I was a temp and I was a bike messenger and I was trying to figure out like life and I liked racing bicycles. So I used to race bicycles semi-professionally and I realized one day that if I went to massage therapy school, I could see, clients, 4 or 5 hours a day and train 4 or 5 hours a day and have the money to race. So I did that. And after about 6 or 7 years I mean, 5 or 6 years of being a massage therapist, um, I was having patients come to me say, Aaron, you're the first person who's ever touched me where I hurt. I've been to see, um, like chiropractors, massage therapists, PTs, OTs, acupuncturists. I've had the surgery and no one's ever helped me like you have. And I'm like, doing more like trigger point therapy, myofascial release, some body work stuff. So I went back to PT school. And I did that when I moved across country from California back to North Carolina where I grew up. I went to Elon University and on my first clinical rotation, I had 43 patients in one day as a student, like in week 3. And I realized that day is like, well, I can't work for someone else in this model and treat patients the way that I've already been treating them when they've like been failed by the therapy profession. So I decided I needed to open a cash practice. I told my CI and he said, no one's going to pay more than their copay for PT. And I was like, you mean so no one's going to, I'm already charging $85 an hour for massage. No one's going to pay me $95 because now I'm Dr. LeBauer. He's like, nope. And so I proved him wrong. And he wasn't the only one that said not to do it, but we charge way more than that these days. But that was really kind of the couple big steps that got started. And I started right out of school. I opened my practice. I started seeing patients as soon as I got licensed.
Wow, awesome. I love that. That's a load full, right? To go from what you did. And you said you raced bicycles?
Yeah, I used to race road bicycles. So,
Oh wow.
I think I did 50 to 80 races a year, trained 4 or 5 days a week. I did that for about 8 years, maybe a little longer. Yeah.
That's awesome. Did you ever think you would be a physical therapist or do anything in the kind of healthcare space?
Well, sort of. I never thought I would be a PT, but I grew up, my father and uncles and grandfather were all physicians. And so there was a lot of pressure to go to med school. And after the first day of organic chemistry, I realized that wasn't my path. I was like, I'll figure something else out. But it's in my blood. So being in healthcare comes naturally to me. I just had to figure out which part of it was gonna be the path that I took.
Awesome, awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, that's really cool. You did mention like right out of school you opened up a practice, right? So it's kind of just you already knew that was the path for you. So yeah, one of my questions was always like, why did you decide to open up your practice? But it seems like the road kind of led you there, especially being a therapist. You already knew you had that value to bring, and then you did say you are right. So you didn't even want to deal with insurance from the go.
No, not at all.
Cool.
The real why is because I wanted to be able to treat patients the way that they needed to be treated, not insurance companies. And I can tell you, it still frustrates me to this day. I've got my daughter, needs a camp physical, but she also needs a refill of her ADHD meds, which is a Schedule 2 drug. So you got to go see the physician every 3 months, and they won't do those 2 appointments on the same day. They say, "Oh, well, your insurance won't pay." And I was like, "Are you sure?" I say, "Have you called and verified my benefits?" And the lady goes, "Well, we had a meeting last week, and so and so said that we can't do that." And I'm like, "I'm sure Dr. Smith, is able to handle these two very non-complex issues in the same 30-minute visit. I mean, one's a physical, and the other is I got to make sure that the person's blood pressure is normal and everything's fine before I can prescribe it again." I mean, it's not clinically
Right.
difficult, but yet. So then I said, "Okay, look, I don't have the time to come in twice." I said, "I'll just pay cash for one." I said, "What's the cash rate?" She said, $150 for the ADHD med check. I said, "Okay, what's the cash rate for the physical?" 130. I'm like, "Okay, one's less time. I don't understand why." I said, "Well, I'll just do the insurance for one and I'll just pay cash for the other." And she's like, "Oh, I can't do that." She's like, "Okay, I can't charge you cash and bill insurance." I'm like, "Okay, what's the cash price for both of them? Like together?" She's like, "Well, I don't know." I said, "Is it going to be the $280, those two added together? Because that's would seem a lot real high." She said, "Yeah." And I said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Will you ask?" And she's like, "No, I can't do that." And I'm just like, they didn't even, the thing is it's not, they didn't ask me if I would mind paying an extra 50 or $100 to have these two things done at the same time because it's better for me. I don't know about you and your listeners, but I'm busy. My time's my biggest thing. And if it's going to be an extra $50 or $150, it might be worth it to me. Maybe it won't be. But that's how it works.
That is well said. That's well said. Your time is valuable, and at the end of the day, you want to take care of you and your family, right?
But when it comes to your, yep,
Right. With the insurance, there's these limitations, and that's frustrating.
yep. So, Steve, but it's like flip it around. It's like, right, if I'm a therapist and I'm treating a patient and the insurance isn't going to pay for 2 units of manual therapy, okay, so now the patient only gets one because insurance won't pay. And most therapists aren't even offering to say, "Hey, look, you've got this issue going on. We need to do like 30 minutes of hands-on therapy with you, but insurance is only going to cover one. The second unit's only going to be an extra $50. Sound good?" People are like, "Nope, I'm not even going to offer it. I'm only do my what's allowed." And does the patient get better? No, they come to my practice and they say, "Hey, Dr. LeBauer, when I go in there, they only give me exercise I can do on their own, or I get seen, for 10 minutes and I want to actually be seen by you and I don't want to wait for an hour to be seen." It's,
Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, and I love that you said the word allowed, right? Therapy should not be allowed. It should be what's needed, right? So the insurances don't know and shouldn't dictate what should be allowed. It should be under the licensed therapist, right? That went through schooling and paid money and has experience should be the one to dictate what the patient needs, not the insurance running paperwork to see how they could best save money, right? So I love the why. I love the why you did this, and then you connected it back to yourself and your family, because you want to help others not deal with these frustrations of the insurance. Oh, so definitely, yeah, that's awesome. We applaud you for that because there's many therapists I speak to that unfortunately cannot do cash based, only cash based because of their demographic area. So
are you
it's
sure?
also
I would challenge you in that. Like, that's maybe what they say, right? I mean, that's one of the biggest myths is people say, I would say there is a smaller demographic than people understand can't actually afford it because there's a condition of, do I value it or do I have money in the bank? Right.
yeah.
And people who can't afford it, in quotes, are still going to be driving, a car. They'll have an iPhone. And they have money in the bank. And then there's people that just don't have money in the bank. Right.
You are absolutely right. And we deal with that all the time, like even with co-payments, right? The patient decides if they want to come back to therapy because of their $15 co, right? And it's true what you said. Like they'll have money in the bank, they'll do all that, but because there's a $15 co-payment, they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna cancel the next week's session." And the experience with that because I have treated patients we had in the home and the brick and mortar clinic. And it was crazy to me that some patients decided to not want like deal with their cane. Right? Instead of saying, "Oh no, I don't want the cane," I'd rather not have therapy next week. just because they had a copayment to pay. And I do break to a lot of therapists with businesses, and a lot of them do say in their area, like they don't see a big need for cash pay because most patients have insurances and they're just not going to pay them. But you are right. Maybe they will because
Almost all my patients have insurance. Like almost all our patients have insurance. It's the value that we give to what we're doing. And to me, it's like, okay, when I have to see multiple people in an hour and a third party is paying the bill, okay, great. I do occupational therapy or physical therapy, but I might be a physical therapist, but I'm not just doing physical therapy. I'm helping people achieve a result, and that's what they would rather pay for. No one wants to do hot packs, leg lifts, and ultrasound or go to PT. I mean, it's a grudge purchase, so we have to, in order to grow the business, we have to really have a value proposition and offer that people want. And they want to be able to work out hard. They want to feel good. They want to feel strong. They want to be a good role model for their kids. And they want to be able to burn off steam at the end of the day and not worry about, injuring their back or damaging their knees. They don't want those things. No one wants PT. No one wants OT. They don't want it. It's not sexy enough,
So yeah, with what you said, I mean, it makes sense. Where if you have a service you provide and you offer results, right? That's what going to have patients come, and you can't put a price on that, right? They want to, if they really value what they need their body essentially, and they will pay the price. And when we say pay the price, this isn't even like a luxury. It's something that you should feel better, right? Your body, if you have pain, if you have difficulty walking, or whatever the case is, OTPT, even speech, right? If you value your function, then you should be able to pay private pay for something that someone's going to actually achieve results for you, right? As opposed to somebody that's going to say, oh, I'm going to take your insurance. I don't get paid enough, so I'm not going to put enough effort into you. And then the insurance cuts you off because they gave you 5 authorized visits, which is a joke, right? And then you don't even get extended. So you're going to get discharged without any results, and it's a waste of time. And I feel like that's why there's a stigma on that with therapy as well, because a lot of patients have experience with that where they got discharged before they saw results. And unfortunately, with the insurances, that's the insurance doing those limitations. And the thing is, it's crazy now because it's not only authorized visits now. A lot of times it's now on CPT codes or how many units you can bill or even how many minutes you can bill. So they're kind of drilling it down to a point where the therapist has like no room to work with. They have to deal with the billing and documentation and treating a patient, and they're no longer motivated to do that because they know they won't achieve those results. And that's upsetting. It's not why we went to school, right? It's not why we became a licensed therapist in the first place. So I love your approach with fully cash based. Have you ever turned away a client like had insurance and said, "Nope, I'm not going to take it," even if they have out of network benefits? Do you provide like a super bill, or do
we
you
do
just
provide a super bill. I don't really turn people away. I've told people we can't help them. But just whether you have insurance or not doesn't really matter. Like we will help you. But I'm not doing courtesy billing for patients. We do provide them with a super bill when they request one. Most patients understand that the 8 to 10 visits they come in to see us isn't going to get anywhere close to hitting their deductible. And and so like they don't even request them. I mean, I did have someone email today and said, "Hey, I need the super bill from the last 2 visits," and so we'll get that to them. But yeah, but they probably still won't get reimbursed. They'll just hit their deductible. I mean, outpatient surgery and some PT might not even get to $5,000 deductible for people. And
right. Makes sense. Cool. Thanks, Aaron, for explaining that. So, so you have a brick and mortar, right? You don't go into the halls.
Yes, I have a brick and mortar practice right now. I did at one point was mobile. I went to people's homes. I've done it all. I've been doing this for over 25 years. I did do some mobile stuff. People go, "Oh, but you don't do mobile." I'm like, "Well, I don't do it now. I did it a long time ago."
You did?
Yeah. And then I've worked in the gym, and I've set up like I've treated people online. I've done some telehealth. We all did in 2020.
Right.
I've done more group coaching. I've done one-on-one stuff. We have programs that meet like a lot of the different price points, and people say it's really expensive and people can't afford it. Fair enough. But people can't afford what they don't value.
True, true. I mean, even from our side, like from the EMR side, right? So we try to be as affordable as possible. We have credit card integrations for exactly, about if you want to take a credit card payment for a co-payment or you want packages for your visits for strictly cash based. We have that. If you want a Super Bowl, we have that. So from our side too, we want to make sure that it's not there's no barrier to entry for cost. So I value that what you're doing from the healthcare side for the patient. So that's awesome. So let's take it back a little bit. When you first started your business, right? I'm assuming you weren't full time. You had to build a caseload. Oh, did you already
I
have?
was full-time working on the business. But I did not have a full-time caseload when I started. So I kind of started a few different times. So I started in San Francisco. I started my business 5 times. Um, I
Oh,
started initially in San Francisco as a massage therapist. I moved to San Luis Obispo after 6 or 7 years and started a massage practice there. I moved to North Carolina in 2004, started a massage therapy practice here, went to PT school in 2006, graduated in December 2008. And that last 6 months, I was out in California on a clinical rotation. So my massage practice died. And then I restarted that in January, doing massage therapy for a month until I got licensed, and it was PT. And I think I started with like 6 or 7 people. So, and people go, "Oh, Aaron, you already had a business." Well, yeah, but I already had connections, and I've helped people since then do the same and even do better than what I did. Make 5,000, 7,000 their first month and 20K in the first 3 or 4 months. It's
yeah.
That's all about the marketing part. But yeah, so I work full time. I didn't work for anyone else, but my caseload didn't fill until it took about a year or two for me to get to where I was seeing consistently 18 to 20 people. Remember, this is 15 years ago. It can be done a whole lot faster these days now that I know, the marketing and the mistakes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've helped clients go 5 times faster than me, you know. So,
Yeah, no, makes sense. And typically, a lot of questions I get asked, like when starting a practice, like you said, it took you about 1 to 2 years to build the full caseload where you want it to be. Were you worried at all during that first year where you don't have a full caseload, or did you let it ride and say, you know what, I know what I offer, I know who I am, I'm gonna get this done? Because a lot.
oh, I was worried. Yeah. No, I was worried and nervous. I mean, remember, I was only charging $95 a visit, and which is way too low. I mean, now I'm charging $300 a visit, and people go, "Oh my God, you're charging $300 a visit." Well, you figure out what I do and what I sell, then it's worth it.
Yeah.
But but yeah, I was worried. My first baby was eight. My wife at the time was 8 months pregnant when I started, and a lot of people say, "Oh, I can't start until after the baby." I mean, or after that's a delay tactic. Was I worried?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? I knew exactly what I wanted to do and I needed to do. Um, and like I said, I think it took me a handful of years. I can't remember, 2.5, 3 years to get to, uh, was it 15,000 in a month gross? And one of
Mhm.
my clients, like 5 years ago, he said he'd buy me sushi. Would he hit that? And he did it in 8 months. So we went to a nice sushi dinner out in San Diego. It took, and then,
Awesome.
I mean, with the pricing and the marketing that I didn't do and didn't know how to do it, that I lost about $1 million in my first 5 years because no one was teaching, how to price and sell physical therapy plans of care cash based. And, nowadays, I mean, it's, full caseload for Aaron. I like seeing 18 to 25 patients a week. Like 18 is great. 24 is good. Once I get to 25 or 26, it's a lot of work. Like not just physically, but mentally and time wise. So,
Of course.
some people like to see 30 people in a day. I don't. So,
Yeah. What's your average visit session?
what do you mean length or how many visits people come in?
No, like length, like you see patients for 1 hour, or does it vary? Like sometimes 30, sometimes 45, sometimes more than an hour.
It's mostly we see patients one person on the hour for it's a 45-minute treatment session. There's 15 minutes in between to kind of change the room, document, and have a little overflow time. Rarely do I see people for 20-minute visits. By the time the person comes in
Mhm.
and tells me their life story, and I do two things, it time's up. And so
Right.
it's really hard to do that. People want to be seen and heard and listened to, and that's one of the things we do. And it's really hard to do that in a 30-minute visit. But 60 minutes is a little too long for some people, but it also means that I have to, I can see 5 people in 7 hours instead of 5 people in 5 hours, you know? So,
That makes sense. Okay. Makes sense. No, that's good. Like that's good. And I like what you said where you decide how many patients to treat in a week, right?
yeah.
And nobody's dictating that for you, and you have to be comfortable because again, you don't want to get burned out, and I'm assuming you also have time for leisure stuff as well, right? But
Yeah, occasionally. Yeah. Yeah, you got to make that time.
well, we usually be
Yep.
that. Yeah.
Steve, the other thing that I don't have to worry about is so like I get to decide with my patients how frequently I see them and how long, but I do not need to worry about upsetting a referring physician. Physicians don't refer people to our practice, and someone comes in and says, "I got bursitis," or "I could never do this," and I'm like, "You know what, Miss Jones, that's not bursitis. That's this other issue." And if they go back to Dr. Smith and they say, "Well, my physical therapist said it wasn't what you said," and that doctor gets their ego hurt and goes, "Well, I'm never sending you referrals again." I don't care. They don't send me referrals anyways because why would they send one? They wouldn't send someone to a cash practice because they don't believe in it. But then the patients, if they do come, why would a patient pay me $300 when they paid a $50 or $75 copay to the decision maker? Who is the physician becomes so they don't that doesn't work that way. So patients come to us directly, and then we make decisions with them, and I help advise patients on what the other things they need to do. So it's more like a primary care relationship, like a musculoskeletal primary care relationship, but it's also I do my own marketing. I don't market the physicians because physicians are terrible referral sources, and then PTs or owners get afraid to upset the referral stream, which is a terrible position to
Like,
be.
oh,
Yeah.
oh, you're 100% right. If you are in a kind of practice where you rely on physician referrals, then yeah, absolutely, you don't want to upset them because one upset referring source could mean a huge chunk of your business is wiped
Yep.
out. No,
So, you get
but
you upset a physician and insurance won't pay. Now, what kind of care is that patient getting? They're getting care based on me not wanting to ruin a financial or interpersonal relationship.
yeah, yeah. All right, awesome. So let's jump into the next thing, and you kind of segued into that. You said you do the marketing. So how many hats do you wear? Do you have a team behind you? I know you're the only treating provider for your practice, but what does your team look like, or do you even have a team? Like who does
It
everything else for you?
fluctuates.
Okay,
It fluctuates. At the moment, it's just Aaron. You know, Pre-COVID, there were 7 people. I had a couple other therapists, an ex-wife, admin, a massage therapist, and then COVID shut down massage therapy, which is 2 people. And then I had an admin, and then we had another PT, and then she got headhunted away, and then I had
right.
another person doing training instead of massage, and then now it's me again. So I wear all the hats, but I've spread it around. I mean, I clean the toilets and I treat the patients. But you know what? The funny part is that virtual assistants are great. Um, like there's some AI tools that I'm using now, and automation. I use a lot of automations to replace people. So it's forced me to work smarter and set things up again in a way that is more automated and simple and easy.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you incorporated technology into that because yeah, why not use the tools available now to work smarter? So cool. But also wearing a lot of hats, also doing everything you do with wearing hats. And then regarding the marketing side, what do you do for marketing? Do you do paid ads? Is it more organic? Do you hand out flyers? Like, do you get patients to find you?
There's a couple big strategies. The ones that have been the best over time, it's always how do I get in front of my target market? So the number one thing you have to know is who the target market is, because if we don't know or they're not clearly defined or specific, then we can't get in front of them. And you see, you have to have a market message match. Like, so my message has to match the market. I can talk all about pickleball, but if I'm at a Pilates studio, I'm in the wrong place. Or if I work with elderly population and I'm trying to go to CrossFit to do work, I mean, there's just no match there. But I would say getting in front of people, whether it's workshops, in like one-to-one with other decision makers and people who are like business owners, asking my current patients for referrals. We do that. So there's a word of mouth. Word of mouth is great, but we have to actually cultivate word of mouth. And then I do have a paid ad strategy, but I don't usually teach paid ads or want to teach paid ads because people don't have all these other things nailed down. They just want to do the sexy part that seems easy, which is let's give Facebook all our money and get nothing in return. And so there's a simple paid strategy, which is right now one of the best ones to do is to take a reel from Instagram that has already generated a handful of followers. You boost it, but to a very specific audience. And then everyone who follows you gets a specific message. And then from there, they get an offer to, either download something for free or come into the clinic or get on a call.
Awesome. Awesome. Makes sense. Thanks for sharing. So it sounds like a lot of what you have, you kind of got it down to a science, right? Like you wear all the hats, you know every angle of your business. Are there any challenges that you face in your business currently? And so how did you overcome?
The biggest challenge is getting all that out of my head and on paper so someone else can understand it and run it. And I've had that other people doing that with the clinic. I mean, for 6 years, I haven't really treated patients and other people running the business. And then as things change with personnel and life, like that's changed, and I'm treating a few patients now again. But that's a big challenge. Managing team and staff is big. One of the mistakes I knew these were mistakes, but didn't have many other options, was putting team members in a position that wasn't what they were hired for, or it wasn't it wasn't suited to their personality and work style, but it was a need of the business. And so I knew that I would suffer because of that. Yeah, like I had a therapist, who's great therapist, amazing, but he was running some of the marketing, and it's just like in operations, and that's just an administrative stuff. And like when we had like someone leave and it was just not a good fit, and I knew that, but I didn't have the time capacity to do anything else about it. So little things like that, where I had a virtual assistant running a lot of social media and podcasts and managing events, and she was great at that, but I was also trying to get her to run some of the operations and like coaching side, and that wasn't a good fit. And so there were a lot of inefficiencies there. So those are some of the bigger challenges: is how do I get more out of my time with the right people in the right, and so they know exactly what they're supposed to do. It's always a challenge communicating, where we are and where we want to go and how to actually execute on the task. If it's, or if I have high expectations, if I have low expectations of like a 10% conversion rate, who cares? Just put someone in that position. But I have expectations for a little bit higher conversions and leads and all that kind of thing. So.
Yeah. No, thanks, Aaron. Yeah, that hits home too, because even from our side, outside of the therapy business, just on the software side, right? So you want to make sure that the people who work and take on a role want to do that role, and you don't just shift them around or give them different hats. And the part of having a smaller business is you try to kind of fill the gaps, right? So it's something that you learn. But it's important to ask for feedback too, I feel like, with those people, because again, that's what they are. They're people, and they're there to help you with your business, right? And you have to make sure that they feel value. So you have to be ready to either shift them around or lose them. So that's also important to understand in a business capacity, because listen, when you run the business, there's so many moving parts out there, and you want to make sure you keep your team happy. Thanks for sharing that. Cool. So any reports that you run for your business, like KPIs? So I'm big on KPIs, and one of the things we do at Hello Node is we're always trying to push, like, you have to run reports, you have to measure the health of your business, right? So I know with insurance-based businesses, when you have referrals and audits to deal with, that's big. For self-pay, because we have the self-pay clients as well. But from your perspective, do you feel like reports are big? Like, do you have to keep track, or are you just good and you're stabilized and you know your business well enough that you don't need to run or keep track of reports?
Yes, and it depends. Like I know kind of how it should be and how it should flow. Um, there's different things you need. Like if I'm by myself, I don't need to know how much like my expenses are per hour versus and at a network, I don't need to know my collections per visit. But if you are,
Yeah.
if you're underwater in one of those, like you're shooting yourself in the foot or you're bailing the water out while you not plugging the hole. I mean, I've worked with a lot of people in the consulting capacity who have a couple contracts that are losing them money, and they're trying to make up for it with $5 extra an hour with someone else. So I don't
Yeah.
have that problem. I should know, like when I have a team and I have other people, I need to know the conversion rate to phone calls to like consults to evaluations. If I'm doing it by myself, I don't really need to do that. I'm 7 for 8 in the last 30 days. And the person that said no was no qualified in 24, she's 24 years old and not really a qualified, person. So yeah, it's good, but I'm the owner and I've been doing this for a while and I've been teaching it. And, it's like, I mean, they weren't all laid on sales, but, it was pretty good. But so I know that my conversion rate is high. My sales aren't the problem. Most people think their conversion rate is higher than it actually is. I have a partner, Derek Nielsen, and we run like marketing trainings and marketing software. And and he's run Facebook ads, and I've helped people in other ways. Facebook ads are like, oh, you put someone in front of me, and I can turn them into a patient. That's not true. The number one frustration practice owners have is that, oh, well, if I pay for Facebook ads, um, like is they're not ads aren't working. They think the ads aren't working. Well, the ads are bringing them leads, and a lot of times ads for clinical practices can bring like trash leads, especially if it's a cash practice. Everyone wants to use their insurance.
Yeah.
Which is great. So if you're insurance based, like it should be easier, but it's still often not because people are terrible at converting. They estimate that their conversion rate is higher than it actually is because they don't track it. And they also don't know their market, or they don't have a target and it's not clearly defined. And so they're trying to help everyone and they end up helping nobody and they get frustrated. So those are some conversion categories that, and metrics that really need to be tracked, especially if you want to run any kind of paid advertising.
Okay, cool. No, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good to know. So what's your exit plan with your business? Do you have one? Is it something you want to kind of build a legacy on, or do you want to eventually franchise or sell it? Do you have anything in mind?
That's a great question. Well, I'm 51, so I've got a while to exit. It's changed over time. When I first started, I was just trying to prove everyone wrong who said that you can't charge cash. It's actually unethical. Even in some aspects illegal is what people were telling me. I'm like, no, it's not. So I did that. Then the next plan was get it to run itself, hire people to put it in place. And that was all great until my ex asked for a divorce, and then that put a lot of pressure on that model. And I was busy I wasn't full time running my clinic. I was working in my coaching business, and so that changed things. So, I'm at this stage in my life where things have changed drastically in the last 3 years. My exit plan is really just like, enjoy myself and have a chill time for a while I really figure out what that next one is. But I'm not gonna sell it to a corporate, some nobody, shitty business, who wants to come and turn it into something that's not. And I'm not gonna just quit because there's too many people here to serve. I'll probably at some point get back to hiring someone to run it, but now I know even better what I'm looking for. and maybe open other locations, but that was never my initial plan in the beginning because everyone said it wasn't going to work. So I didn't even have this vision. So that's really kind of one of those things I'm building. Exit plan wise, I mean, I got good life insurance and I've got retirement savings. So my kids are good. And at some point I'll figure out, when I start using that, but I'll probably always work in some capacity. And we'll see. There's another thing coming down the road, and it's probably more like, invest in some kind of real estate that has cash flow and reinvest in real estate with cash flow. And then the clinic and other things become, just extras, something like that.
Cool. Oh, no, I love that. I love that. I love that you're even without a concrete plan, at least you have options, right? And listen, at the end of the day, you have a successful practice, and as you said, you still want to work, right? So it's not something just motivate you, just sit back and relax and sell it all. So that's really cool. So thank you, Aaron, for sharing that. And just to let us know, the listeners always want to hear like what advice would you give to someone that wants to kind of get out of that corporate world and go and start their own business, right? Whether it's self-employed, taking cases, or they're working for an assisted living or skilled nursing, and they want to start a business, but they're, and I hear this a lot, they're just scared to take that leap because they have a family now, and you mentioned before, when you start a business, your wife was 8 months pregnant. That's, that's tough. So what advice do you have for those that are kind of scared to take that jump?
I honestly think if you're scared to take the leap, you're not cut out for running a business. And you're just trying to escape a terrible job, which I think is what a lot of people do. They think, oh, I got a shitty job. It doesn't pay well. Let me go start my business. And they really just start a job. They don't really start a business. Because you got to take risk. You got to be willing to take risks. You got to be willing to withstand lots of pressure to run a successful business. I mean, it takes lots of it takes a lot of pressure and the ability to withstand people telling you that you're doing it wrong, that you stink, that your product doesn't work, it's terrible. I mean, you've probably heard this from people, like, your product's horrible, it's terrible, I'm never coming back, blah, blah, blah. You got to be able to withstand all that stuff. And so really, okay, if you're like, oh, I don't think I could ever take the leap, the questions to ask yourself are, will I regret not doing it when I'm 95? And then 2 is, why do I really want to do that? Like, what do I really want? Do I just want to see patients, or do I want to actually build something that's going to help more people? And you have to have a vision that's bigger than just you, or you're just going to build a job, and building a job is fine, but it's going to be hard. It's harder than working for someone else because you're responsible for it 24/7, not 9 to 6.
Yeah, no, well said, right? You have to take that risk. And really, that's the leap you have to take. And again, you don't want to have regrets, because once you get to a certain point and you can't do it anymore, you don't want to live with that regret with what if I try. So, and I always tell everyone, it's okay to try and fail, right? So, especially try to do it when you're younger, right? With less responsibilities, because as you get older, and I speak to a lot of therapists who are older and now they're not, it's harder to start something when you're older, right? So definitely appreciate that advice. And I think others will appreciate that too. And it's raw, right? It's raw advice. Like, if you can make that jump, then it's not cut out for you, right? Maybe it is, maybe it's not, but you won't know, right? So I like that. So thanks, Aaron. And I do want to also mention to everyone, Aaron is the host of a podcast and an author. So Aaron, just share a little bit about that for our viewers too.
Yeah, the host of the podcast is called The Aaron LeBauer Show. And in it, I interview other successful practice owners, talk about business, marketing strategies, systems, scaling topics, etc. You can find it on iTunes and I'm pretty sure Spotify. And I have a book. It's called The Cash PT Blueprint. I wrote it about 10 years ago? 2018, I released that one. And it's free.
Cool.
You just cover shipping and handling. So you can grab a free copy. It goes through all the steps I took to launch and scale a multi-six-figure cash practice, hire other people. It's got a lot of the marketing strategies, checklists, etc. and you can get it at you can pay for it on Amazon. You can go to cashptblueprintbook.com and just cover the $10 shipping, and we'll ship it out to you free.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you very much, Aaron. This was a pleasure. I enjoyed speaking with you, and I'm sure others enjoyed listening. So thank you very much. And I
Absolutely.
definitely hope to connect with you soon to catch up. Okay.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate you having me on.
Going.